In my post-retirement posts, I'm looking to find things that are interesting, things that are a little different. And today I've come to London, a rather wet and dreary London, but I started off in Roupell Street. And this really is a fascinating place. You might recognise it from films, James Bond films, TV programmes, EastEnders, Legend. Well, many of them are filmed here. There's a conservation order on Roupell Street, so nothing can be changed. Really is interesting. Next, I'm heading north to search out more of London's history. From Archway Station, I walked up Highgate Hill, through a small park, and into Highgate Cemetery. You know, you could spend absolutely hours here just taking in the atmosphere. It's truly unique. The first burial at Highgate was in 1839, but now there are over 53,000 graves. The cemetery is the final resting place today for over 170,000, with a maze of catacombs and family vaults. But hidden amongst the graves are some names you might just recognise. Here's the resting place of Douglas Adams, you know, the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And over here, TV personality Jeremy Beadle. There's also the unusual resting place for punk promoter Malcolm McLaren of Sex Pistols fame. And the final resting place of local boy George Michael, next to his mother and sister. And the list extends from literature and music to politics. Here's the assassinated Russian FSB defector Alexander Litvinenko. And here's the original resting place of philosopher and capitalism critic Karl Marx. But in 1954, at the height of the Cold War, he and his wife were exhumed and reinterred within this really, really impressive monument. You know, every Sunday there's a Karl Marx Walk of London that sets off from Leicester Square. I might get on it. For the next of my day's destinations, I've travelled south again to Temple. Now, this is a little known area, but let's go and have a look. It really is fascinating. Famous for being one of London's major legal districts and home to 2 Inns of Court, Temple really is a rabbit warren of tunnels, alleyways and courtyards, all steeped in history dating right the way back to the Middle Ages. Temple actually got its name from the Knights Templar. They were headquartered here, and several Grand Masters of the Knights Templar are buried in this magnificent Temple Church. It was also used as a location for filming of the Da Vinci Code. And I said Temple is a major legal area. Just across the road are the Royal Courts of Justice, where civil or non-criminal cases are resolved. And tucked away behind the law courts is Lincoln's Inn, the largest inn of court. It comprises of glorious buildings, absolutely beautiful gardens. You may have noticed that everywhere I've been today, there's been a distinct lack of people. That is not because I've arrived in some post-apocalyptic world. It's actually because I'm trying to try and get off the beaten track. There's some places that not everybody knows about. Even Londoners don't know about some of these places. But the next place, everybody knows the name. Here I am at the Central Criminal Court, or the Old Bailey as it's commonly known. Now, every time I do a GoldGoggles video, I reveal something about my past. And I have to say, school never really agreed with me. But as a youth, I used to come here and sit in the viewing gallery and learn from the barristers and the court processes. I found it absolutely fascinating. And now, 40 years on, I'm coming back again to listen to cases. But there's a difference. I said school never really suited me. I never failed an exam. That's because I never took one. But 40 years on, I'm actually starting at the end of this month a degree course with the Open University, and I'm going to be studying law. So what goes around comes around. Let me show you how you can go into the Old Bailey too. There are 18 courtrooms in total, and you can Google search what's on at the Old Bailey to read about cases being heard that day. There's no dress code, but it is best to wear a shirt and long trousers. You must be over 14 years old and might need ID to prove it. And once you're in a public gallery, there's no talking, no noises, no movement, and absolutely no hand gestures. Now, the public gallery entrance is under this arch and in the tunnel. Security is understandably extremely tight. There's a long list of things you're not allowed to carry. No bags, no lighters, no matches or vapes, and absolutely nothing electronic. That includes your phone or smartwatch. But nowadays, who goes out without a phone? So, walk down the road to this travel agency, and they'll take safe care of your phone. Just costs a couple of pounds. Good tip, that one. Just a few minutes walk from the Old Bailey is a building you wouldn't even notice. But buried 25 yards underground, with steel-lined walls 3 foot 9 inches thick, its own air filtration system to protect against chemical attack, and some very, very big doors, is the London Silver Vaults. There are over 40 shops, each with their own vault. It's the largest single collection of silver for sale in the world. And you don't even need a ticket or pay an entrance fee. This really is a very, very hidden treasure. So few people, even Londoners, know it's even here. Up there is Nelson on his column. But what a lot of people don't know is just behind him there's a spare nose. Yes, it's stuck on a wall, and it was put there in case his nose got damaged whilst they were erecting the column. Now that obviously is an urban myth. However, there are 7 noses stuck on walls scattered around this area. They're called the 7 Noses of Soho, and they were actually created by a guy called Richard Buckley. He actually made 35 of them, but there's 7 left. And it was a protest against the amount of CCTV and listening devices. There are actually 2 ears of Covent Garden as well. But let's go and find out where those noses are. I won't actually give the actual locations away, but I'll show you the streets they're in. So I'm walking down Great Windmill Street, just off Leicester Square, and here you can see, here's our first nose. See, I didn't make it up. There are 7 noses of Soho. This one, Great Windmill Street. Here we are in Dean Street, and there's a nose here for sure. Running off Dean Street is Bateman Street, and that's home to another hidden nose. Next up, Darblay Street, and home to another nose. It's a bit of a trek to find the location of the next nose, but Soho nose number 6 is in Handel Street, and there she sits. And in the old pantomime fashion of "it's behind you," there's the 7th nose of Soho. Now, don't forget there's also the 2 ears of Covent Garden, but in the meantime, I'm going to head this way and check out another one of London's curiosities. And this building at 25 Brook Street is where Handel, the composer, lived. In fact, he lived here from 1723 until he died in 1759. But in the same building, weirdly enough, is where Jimi Hendrix also lived from 1968 to 1969. So it's now called the Handel Hendrix House. Well, as the night draws in, there's just time for me to show you a couple of things that you might want to do of an evening in London. And the first is this way. My first suggestion for an evening's entertainment in London is down this rather grimy cobbled street to this blue door and this strange sign. It's actually home to the Magic Circle. Yes, there's a small stage, a small theatre, and that's where magicians and wizards perform. There's a little museum downstairs as well. It really is a wonderful place. It's so interesting, and the close-up magic is great. And it's here that wannabe magicians have to do an audition in order to join the Magic Circle. So well worth checking out their website to see when the next shows are on. Well, I'm back near Waterloo Station, and for my last stop of the day, I've come to Leake Street Arches. If you've not been, it is incredible. It's like something from a different planet. And they actually run graffiti classes. So I might put myself on. Who knows what GoldGoggles will do next. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my look at London. We've done it all in one day. Now, if you've lost count of where I've been and what I've been doing, there is a goggle guide that I've put together about my day out in London. And hopefully it's given some inspiration, whether you're a Londoner or an outsider, visiting, never visited, visiting for the first time. Hopefully some ideas about what you can do in this wonderful city.